Yo dog, Kenny Boucher here, acting substitute host of the Long War Battle Reports. Today we're going to be doing another 3-part series of Inside the Mind of a Tournament Gamer.
Do-do-do, do-do-do. In the mind of me.
Inside Juice for a 3-game tournament series. I am very excited to see what the future holds for us.
All right, so here we go. The first game against Richard and I is going to be Dawn of War, 5 objectives, and we've got kill points. My secondaries are going to be First Blood, Mark for Death, and Linebreaker. So, and this is going to be a little tough. That's why I didn't want to go after Warlord per se, because he's going to be dug into that 1,000-point Death Star unit.
Inside of a Death Star, it's always hard to pick out one individual, especially with Lookout Sirs. And if they don't want you to kill it, it's really hard to kill it.
Yeah, and to be honest, if I engage too early with it and he crumbles and pummels my army too much, he can just attach that guy and just put him back in the backfield, and I'll never get a chance to get after him.
Oh yeah, so that's my number one move. I love it when, and this is the Nova style missions where asymmetrical mission design. Which actually I love these missions where you get to basically pick your own mission. You even get to say, and we didn't do that for this tournament because it was because it was bringing hobby back and there was a lot of people there. But you actually get to pick like one of 2 primaries and then select all your secondaries to suit you for this mission. So I actually love that mission design, and so you obviously pick secondaries that you were strong at.
Absolutely. You know, not having more than one Hive Tyrant is definitely made me think twice on the First Blood, but I was like, yo, he's still going to do what he does. I still will be able to, I feel like, pick up a single small unit early in the game.
At least by turn 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Because with his firepower that he doesn't really have, with looking over his list, I'm not really worried about losing a unit within the first 2 turns.
All he's got is some Twin Link Bolters. That's a really strong choice, and I completely endorse that decision-making process. And honestly, I think if you can just figure out how to, dictate charges on your terms, I can't see how you wouldn't be able to sneak away with some points and at least a solid win against this army. Even though it's a really difficult army, I think you got the plays and the skills.
You know, that's basically what it's going to come down to is my Termagant Bubble Wrap. If it's able to hold up and he's not able to sneak in against any of my lines to protect my almost 1,000-point Death Star that's not all in a unit, actually more than 1,000 points between the Swarm Lord, the Demastron, and Optimus Prime.
Absolutely, man. Can't wait to see this game.
Okay, so here is right after the deployment. This is going to be kind of a quick round just because I've only got my 1 flying Hive Tyrant, and basically all I'm doing is just kind of poising. I know that his Wolf Star, is so much better than mine. So basically what I've done now is kind of position some things, and I've got my flying Hive Tyrant coming up the flank.
Yeah, that's a 1 Hive Tyrant, and you've said it a million times. You don't like 1 Hive Tyrant.
No, absolutely not, right? Like, I just see these 5 Space Marine bikers. I'm like, who cares? I slaughter 5 Space Marine bikers. Not today, not when you're only running with 1. So that has definitely had me slipping. So my turn 1 was basically 2 things.
Yeah.
So now this is going into Richard's phase. I'm trying to fill him out. I played Richard multiple times, but what I'm trying to do now is figure out how aggressive he's actually going to be. He's already made some little comments and innuendos throughout the game about how powerful the Demastron, my Optimus Prime, and Swarmlord is. And I'm kind of downplaying, but knowing he's right. But, I just see a Wolfstar being able to go through.
Yeah, but that's huge because you need to keep him scared of the Demastron and the Prime, because if he actually just came at you and drew you out, especially with that endurance up, he has the ability to hurt you. And
Absolutely.
I just noticed he did manage to wound your Hive Tyrant with a couple of bolters.
Yeah. When you mean a couple, I think there's 3 bolters in that whole unit. I'm just kidding. It's like some crappy bikers that have some bolters. He was able to do a wound, right? This is going to play super fatal here coming up. We also have this drop pod that just came in. It is the standard shield with a 3-up in bone type dude, if I'm not mistaken.
It looks like the murder thing, but I did notice he dropped it in out of sequence, and I think that you as a cool guy let him bring it in.
Absolutely coolness. But you see how the uncool factor just came in, where I literally just failed my grounding check off of being shot at by a couple bolters.
So it looks like you're about to get murdered by that Thunder Star.
So the entire star, because it's so big and he was able to kind of do his thing and spread out, kind of be everywhere he wanted, literally gets first blood. His turn 1, able to pick up 255 points in the configuration that I run him this way. You'll see later on in the other games how impressively powerful that adversary.
I do want to notice this could be a blessing in disguise because his Thunderwolves are like literally 6 inches further away from you than they were a second ago.
So they were, and what you're going to see kind of play out is that I don't have the testicular fortitude with my unit to push it to mid board and actually try to get out of charge.
You cannot be the one who gets charged. Literally, not a thing. You have to bait him into charging your bubble wrap of gaunts, which you're using very tactically here. How you're pulling back, you're actually pulling back in making him come to you a turn.
Absolutely.
So you can fight him at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's so great that you pointed out him moving 6 inches to the left during that assault phase. I actually moved 6 inches to the right to counter. So now I basically gained an extra foot.
Yeah, you guys are going the yin yang classic yin yang formation over each other.
Yep, absolutely. And so the Gene Stealers on the bottom left of the board, I wanted them to come in later game, maybe when he was dwindled down, so I can do some move and runs. But as you guys are going to see here momentarily, he is literally just going to dedicate just a random little 5-man biker unit to putting them to bed. Now over here on the right, this is where the my Ravener squad during my turn. I was like, look, I got to take a chance. I got to go, and I want to try to eliminate some of that flank. So my Raveners that was protecting the Damashron from being charged from the side where my Gaunts couldn't get to quite yet. I was like, I feel confident with my 30+ attacks that have Rending.
Yes, and weapon skill 5.
And weapon skill, and I gave them preferred enemy because of the Swarm Lord. I feel like they should be able to mow through this.
And I also think that's 2 lictors that are appeared in the right flank too, right by the bikers as well.
That's exactly what it is. They came in, did some shooting at strength 6. They're just kind of being a nuisance back there. It
provides him with options though. He's got to think about what he wants to do after this combat. Does he want to go into it with 2 lictors? And don't forget, a lictor is basically Space Marine Captain stat line. You know.
Absolutely, strength 6 rending as well, right? So I was able to scoop up that unit. If those lictors didn't come in, I probably wouldn't have shot right then with the Raveners, but I knew going into his turn, now he's got 3 or 4 separate small units to try to deal with.
And also your Raveners are creating kind of a road bump for him, you know, and so he's immediately going after the Raveners, it looks like, and he's going to ignore those lictors, which means those lictors will get the opportunity to come in there and do what they do.
Yep. So what he's going to do now is he's going to try to cast. He's been failing the first couple of endurances. Kenny, do you know how big that is? I wanted him to actually succeed, so he got a little. He actually get a little gusto going and come at me. But he's saying to himself, "I can't go in," which I completely respect. I can't go in without endurance. So the teeter going back and forth happens again. Do you see what he just did there? He shot my Raveners before coming in. Yeah. Well, he was able to do enough wounds to make me fall back. So now he can't assault the lictors or the Raveners.
No combo charge. Yeah, actually both your units broke that turn.
Yeah, so basically
what happened, leadership checks on Gene Stealers and Raveners.
Yep. And so basically what just happened is now the Raveners were able to get back into Synapse range, so they're chilling, not going to die, so that was huge because this was a battle point mission as well.
And even though they're fearless now for falling back into Synapse range, they don't get to do anything but the 3-inch consolidation.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have Animation and No Fear.
Yep, absolutely. And to be honest, that's all I wanted because that was going to be a crucial kill point coming up later that I didn't want to have to go back and forth with. So now, as if you can see, he was able to stop Paroxysm, which I kind of wanted that to go off because I might have got a little...
It's just so hard to cast it. He has a Room Priest in there, and so like he's probably blocking you on 4s.
Did you see how I only rolled a 1 right there?
Yep.
My run route, that was so big. I really wanted to stretch those gaunts all the way out, back almost to where that drop pod was, so I didn't lose inches with the Damashron, but it didn't happen. So instead my run route had to be for the Damashron had to come back towards the gaunts instead of staying
you
where
can't allow him to get around the wrap.
Absolutely.
So these lictors are about to crash into these 5 bikes and see what they can do.
So what I was able to do is basically punk down the models that mattered. He got 2 little dudes that were left,
and he couldn't get 3-inch consolidation back in.
Yep, and because I was able to come at so far on that right flank that he wasn't able to get his attacks back at me in turn. So now this is his phase.
And he's being baited by those lictors again.
Yep. So he is deep back in the corner. I know the entire time, this is there's 4 or 5 objectives if I'm not mistaken. There's 4 if I'm not mistaken. And so basically what's happening is I am able to feel good with my maneuverability and stuff like that to do what I need to do versus him being stuck almost completely. If you look at that 1,000-point unit, it is in a 2x2 piece of square.
Yeah.
Into the 4th turn.
Like Richard's doing what he can. That's the big problem with Death Stars is Death Stars don't have the MSU during the game. They have to Voltron. But the problem is when they Voltron, they don't have the power. So he's trying to stay together to fight you later in the later game. But,
Yep, and then so let's look at something here that just happened. So he was able, so he picked up all the lictors. I forgot, I apologize. It was the turn before when I hit and run. But so the star now is basically dead center. And no, there I did hit and run. So he was only, I thought it was this turn.
yeah,
I
he
apologize.
messed. Looks like he didn't kill the other lictor for somehow.
He couldn't kill the other lictor because he wasn't able to engage it. So he had the star attaching to one and a 2-man bike unit attaching to the other. Because the bikes were so big, he couldn't get around it. So
so he wasn't able to get his power fist in.
Absolutely, and I was able to slaughter the other 2 bikes left with 2 lucky rending shots. So I do a little shooting with my little lictor that is back there, and now I've positioned. Do you see how the Optimus Prime is mid-board basically?
Yeah.
So basically what I'm doing is I'm like, do I go here? Do I go here? I can actually bait him a little bit maybe, and to get around my Gaunt bubble screen.
You're trying to lure him in.
Yes.
To hit that Gaunt screen, and then obviously hit him with the countercharge, and he's going extreme right flank because he's obviously scared of Optimus.
That's exactly what it was. Instead of baiting him, he's just like, man, I can't, because I wanted him to spread himself out. But he's like, nah, I'm not going to do it. It's turn 4. He'll have to just basically kill the Gaunt screen this turn.
He's already having to disengage some of his Death Star because he has to think about those objectives.
Yep, and then do you see this? He did a Iron Priest, if I'm not mistaken, Iron Priest with 3 Cyberwolves that were left, and he left them behind to deal with that single lictor.
Yeah.
He's about to pick up all the Gene Stealers. It was basically
it was horrible. Like they just kept boltering you to death, and you couldn't do anything about it.
And I have to go to ground to try to get some save. Either way, it was not a good game for the Gene Stealers.
No, there's nothing you can do. Like he'll if he didn't go to ground, he would have just come in and hammer wrath you, take another 4 with him. Like it's just Gene Stealers. Like you're running essentially a Highlander list.
Yes.
And Gene Stealers are just hard to play with right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is turn 4, so this is going to be a big turn if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so basically what happens, he rolls through the entire Gaunt squad.
Yeah.
So at first I looked at my opponent and I was like, Rich, do you just want me to pick up these models? He's like, no. Like, I want to try to see if I can stay in contact. I was like, I completely understand, dog, but once you start rolling the dice, you'll see there's nothing that's going to keep these 20 Gaunts alive.
Nah.
You have a 1,000-point star with like 25 or 30
like
strength
15 strength 5 hammer wrath attacks, then
I was like, there's no way. So either way, he was able to back up a little bit. Now this is where you see Richard and I going back and forth. This is a predetermined 26 inches.
Very careful measuring happening here, so you can figure out what the charge distances are and everything. Is that a Rune Priest on bike right there?
Yes, it was. Yep. So I throw preferred enemy to the Swarm Lord, okay, from himself. So then now we're going to go for Catalyst from to the Damasheron.
So you have a lot of feel no pain and preferred enemy going off.
Yep. So I get my first charge.
So this is huge.
This was huge. So I failed the first one, right? So now it's like, yo, this is my reroll. I need a 9-inch charge. This is Optimus Prime going, and he sticks a 10.
He sticks exactly a 9.
Oh, it sticks exactly a 9. I'm sorry, that's not a long one. Yep. So, man, right? Richard and I, the room blew up with screams when that happened. So I was able to get everybody else in base contact except guess who couldn't fit? That is the blue top right there, and that is the Malanthrope.
Yeah,
if I could have got
part of a successful charge.
Yeah, I would get preferred enemy. So basically what goes down here is the Damasheron just does work. I actually opt to use the instant death on the roll of a 4 up. So I'm starting insta-killing stuff, and he's getting like, 7 or 8 attacks because he's outnumbered this first round.
Right, and I did notice, because I know obviously I edited these battle reports, I did notice that you both forgot that Endurance bestows Eternal Warrior on the unit.
Yes.
And so that is actually something that came up that no one realizes it until like the end of the next turn. So the thing is, like, through tournament play, when you've gone a turn in, it's too late to unwind it. And actually, Richard's the one who said it's too late. And I even talked to Richard yesterday at a local event, and he even talked about it. It's like, yeah, as a tournament player, you have to the rate of play has to be considered. You can't, you can't try to
and
unwind it.
I really absolutely. I try to figure out what could be the easiest way I actually forgot about it because he failed it 2 out of the first 4 turns.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even used to thinking that it was even there.
Absolutely his responsibility to remember, not yours. And you're also not someone who's totally versed in all the psychic powers because you're a Tyranid player who only has a set of psychic powers that
it will let me use. Yeah. So now basically that Iron Priest that was staying in the bag to punk down that Lictor has now shot forward, shot past everybody, and is going after the Malanthrope. which is pretty smart because he knows that he can tangle one-on-one with the Malanthrope and just smash it out. So the Swarm Lord has taken position with Optimus Prime to take this back objective. He's literally just holding it down. There are the bikes chilling over on Richard's left midboard, who's on top of an objective there. He's not going to move any forward. And then it's up to my Raveners that are hiding behind.
Yeah, the ones that broke from shooting.
The ones that broke was taken, but now Richard is contesting with that other that Iron Priest there. So this game came down. It was super clutch. I couldn't imagine a funner game, especially starting this out. But we came down to me getting a minor victory, is what they call, where it was 14-12.
14-12. That still is close. And I did want to comment, like I said, I did go out of my way to talk to Richard, interview him the other day before we did the voiceover for this. And he said something to me that really made sense. He's like, there's never been a perfect game of 40K. He's like, Juice forgot to deploy 5 Gaunts. And when I was like, put them on the table, Juice is like, they're dead. I forgot to put them on the table. We're literally into bubble screen on turn 3. It's literally they're dead. I lost 5 of them somehow. Like, don't worry about it. It's just like how at the end of turn 2, after all the end of turn 1, after all Richard's shooting, he forgot his drop pod. They brought it in because it actually matters. So like, there's never been a perfect game of 40K, and part of the dialogue with your opponent, part of the social contract, is to figure out how to recover from imperfect plays, because there is literally pages of rules that oftentimes people forget, especially in the first round of a tournament.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on, and especially one thing I'd like to point out is the pace of the game is set right away. If I would have said, no, Rich, I don't know however I could have, but like, you don't get your drop pod, you don't get this, you don't, that is setting the tune for the rest of the game. You never want to do that as a 40K player. You always want to enjoy the entire full whatever. So from the start, we always were going back and forth, policing. We were actually more polices to ourselves, saying, no, I won't get my models back. No, you know what I mean? Instead of having the other players do it for us.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.